Maybe later.
Later? Oh, you have faith in me.
Rene Kuhlman is indeed a cool man. Look at that haircut and that beard and that jacket. He's rocking it all.
Viking chic.
Thank you guys for this lovely introduction. This is indeed who I am, and we've gotten a lot of questions about that. Who the hell is this guy? Nice video, but you know, what's up? And I'm here today to tell you guys a little bit of my story, how I basically went from playing Freerolls to playing high-stakes poker to coaching some very good players to now coaching the world. So I actually started playing Freerolls on average poker. For you other old school poker players out there, the Shasta tables. Basically you could win, if I'm not mistaken, like 50 cents or something, and then when you had that, you would try your luck on the 1 cent, 2 cent tables, and when that didn't work out, you were back to the Shastas again. And did this various times. Never really gotten my role that way. Then I actually figured out a couple things about like $50 for free actions, and that's kind of when I started to take it a little bit more serious, started to try and build out this $50 roll to something that I could actually play with. Remember, run that up a couple times, so like 1K, then I would cash out, spend it, instead of, you know, saving it in the bankroll. Would go on holiday, or I don't know, buy some nice clothes or whatever I was interested in at that moment, so it wasn't very sustainable. And then actually I remember, like, normally when summer would come, you know, you would try to get a summer job, and then at some point I was like, you know what, why don't I just spend all that time playing online poker and see if I can actually, you know, not having to get a summer job anymore. So I did that, went well, managed to spend that again on holiday as well. So it was mainly building up a little bit and spending it. In the meanwhile, I was still studying. I was doing an internship. I was being a web designer, and actually I was playing some poker on the side at my work. Hi, ex-boss. And I started to actually realize that, wait, like, I'm actually studying for something and actually making way more money playing this. I was playing like some heads up cash in between my work, and I was probably running hot at the time, because I remember I was just winning buy-ins at what, 100 NL. And I was like, wait, I mean, I'm winning hundreds of dollars here. Why do I even work? So actually, I did actually enroll into another study. A little bit of pressure here from the parents. And in the meanwhile, I was playing poker on the side, so I didn't have a job. And then this time I was actually trying to build myself a role, mainly playing cash games, 100 NL, 200 NL. Remember, it was also full ring back at the time. Would also play like some multi-table sit and goes back, still at the full tilt area. You know, you were a little bit of all around. Started to grow my role until I think I was 2 years into my studies, and actually I got I was actually already in touch with a couple of other Dutch players, and they were actually planning on moving to Malta to play online poker, which obviously sounds way more interesting than studying. So I decided to move to Malta and try out this being a poker professional thing. I moved into a house with some players who you guys probably know. Scarface.vot was one of them. F My Life, all retired poker players, and another guy who's a bit less known, Leonard. And basically this was when I kind of started my professional career. But then it actually started to become more interesting, as basically we were just playing poker all the time, and FIFA. That was something that was played quite a lot at our house as well. FIFA for side bets, quite a lot of fun. But it was basically a lot of poker. You were in the house a lot. Everything was about poker. And actually, that was actually the first time where I started to notice like a little bit of tilt, mental game issues, because I wasn't just anymore playing when I felt like it or when I had time, besides my studies. But it was kind of more like, okay, what we're gonna do now? Yeah, play. In the morning, what are we gonna do? Play. Afternoon, play. So I actually I think I was playing a lot, and the balance was quite off. Obviously, also all my non-poker friends were still in Holland. So I definitely had to get used to that a little bit, and I noticed it because that was, I think, the first time I went broke. Not long after, I was basically on tilt, trying to play much hands. Basically, I had no clue how to be a professional poker player, and basically the rest of us also didn't. But especially FMyLife back in the time already was playing quite high stakes, and we were basically just talking about how to play poker, which I knew how to do, but all the things around playing poker and being a poker professional, that was very new to me and to everyone. We didn't really have an example. It was just like, yeah, you know, you sit down and you start playing. We didn't really think about it in a more advanced way than that. And that was actually also the first time that I went broke. I did get a stake straight away, and I remember after the stake it was going quite well, actually way too well. It was basically, from what I remember, I was running very bad, but also playing bad and tilting quite hard. And straight away when I started the stake, I was doing very well. And I went on an insane heater, and I had no clue at that moment what were my expected winnings per month, what a win rate was, what kind of win rates were normal. We had no clue back in the time, so I was just like, okay, yeah, well, you know, this is the new reality now. I'm a professional poker player. I'm gonna make 20k a month, no problem. And that heater definitely fucked me up in a way, because I was getting quite lazy. You know, everyone knows this kind of sessions where you just sit down, you win a lot of money, and you're like, okay, this is the new reality now. It's a nice thing to try and believe, which obviously wasn't the case. So it was doing a little bit better, but obviously heaters kind of end. Remember, actually, we went to Vegas. First time Vegas, for the people who have never been, definitely something that you have to experience. But first time Vegas, one house with a bunch of guys, a lot of parties, getting robbed by strippers, too much alcohol, obviously all kind of factors that don't really improve your poker game, let alone bankroll management. I remember I sat down we were playing a 10, 25, 50 game, and I mean I was playing mainly like mid stakes online. And I was already broke. It wasn't even my roll. And I remember I was sitting with basically my roll at the table, which was maybe what, 8k or something. And I swapped 8k with Scarface, VOT. And I remember him losing a pot. Still remember it. He flopped top pair, top kicker, and queen eye board. The guy check raised and barreled off. Obviously he had a set. And there I saw like half of my roll go away. It was even out of my control. But I remember back in the time it didn't really care to me. I was kind of living in like denial, you could say. I don't know, it didn't really hurt me as much. It was like, I was quite hyped as well. A lot of people were saying I was a very good poker player, and I kind of just went with that. It's like, okay, yeah, in the long term it will be all right. But obviously financially it wasn't going that well. So you could say that time, looking back at that time, I was very irresponsible, but it was a lot of fun. And I mean, what can you do? I was like 22, 23. I have to say, new school poker players who now roll into poker and they're that age, they're way more professional than we were back in the day. I don't know anyone of my age 10 years ago that took the game as professional as some guys who are 23 now would. I guess it's just the fact that it's way harder nowadays to win a lot of money at poker compared to back then. But obviously my situation still wasn't that good. I remember after Vegas I went back to Malta. And there was just like, there was no awareness of the fact that there was a range of A and C game in poker, that like if you don't sleep well, that the next day you don't play as well. If you don't eat well, that will also have an influence on how you will play, how you prepare, etc. I remember I was just laying on the couch and playing on my laptop, for example. These are obviously factors that will not contribute to a great poker session, but I had no awareness back then, so it was quite frustrating because I was like, wait, am I a good poker player? Am I not a good poker player? Yeah, I used to be winning a lot in my little upswing, and now I'm not winning. What's going on? Still in that current situation, and actually I think I was back in Holland back at that time. A couple of my friends who I was in Malta with, they were planning on going to Brazil. And I mean, if you're in Holland in the winter and it's dark, Brazil sounds quite attractive. So I actually went to Brazil with kind of the same guys again. Again, a very irresponsible decision. Maybe I had like 10K on my poker account and that wasn't even mine. So it's not really a smart situation to go to Rio de Janeiro in the epic of New Year, Carnival and all this kind of stuff, because it can get quite costly, and if you have no money, that's not a lot of fun. But obviously I didn't really think about it that way. I was irresponsible and went anyway. Not well planned. I remember when we arrived there, no apartment, found an apartment, internet shitty, you know. Not the way that I would currently travel if I would play poker. Okay, definitely, again, a lot of unawareness of how it worked. And Brazil, obviously quite a distracting place if you like Latin American women, which I'm definitely a fan of myself. Actually married one, but I'm going ahead of myself here. And in general, I remember that period was a lot of fun, but it didn't necessarily help my poker career. It did help my love life, and I did gain a lot of experience, made a lot of friends. But I remember actually now the fact that I was being basically a broke and in-depth poker player did start to have its effect, especially on like stress levels. And especially when you hang out with players who are way more successful than you financially. I remember I was hanging out with a couple of guys who were quite good at their game, and they were making way more money than I did. And then when it was carnival and parties, you know, you would just go along even though you didn't have the money. Not very smart and very stressful at times. So I guess the joy that I experienced was getting less and less, and the stress that I was experiencing was growing. I would actually end up going to Vegas again. This time I thought I was gonna approach it a little bit smarter, which I did. Definitely a bit less partying, no strip clubs, or at least less strip clubs, as my girlfriend was there as well. And I remember actually poker, I went actually on a live poker stake, playing like some high stakes. Didn't go as well, unfortunately. Actually it went quite badly. And I remember at the end of that trip, I mean, Vegas, again, if you're in Vegas and you have no money, I wouldn't recommend it. It's quite stressful. Everywhere you turn your ass, you have to spend money. So the stress definitely started to build up for me personally. And I remember back then I got like a letter from a friend of mine that in Holland I still had a bill open of like 1K or something. I remember that was actually quite a breakdown moment for me, where basically the financial stress kind of got to me. And it's kind of an annoying situation because I felt like I had no control over my expenses. I was just getting sucked into it because I was going with the group that I was going. And I was just kind of getting sucked into it, and I felt like I had no control over my expenses. So after Vegas, actually, I flew back to Holland, brought my girlfriend, and was actually spending some time with my parents. Just, you know, controlling my expenses a little bit. She had to go back to Brazil, so we spent some time apart. And then I actually moved to Malta again, where I really started to kind of find a routine, and I started to kind of discover myself like, hey, if I eat certain things after that, I'm less concentrated. Hey, if I sleep better, I'm more concentrated. Hey, if I prepare well, I actually play better. Hey, if I stick to my hours, or like, hey, this time of the day I'm way more sharp, and actually started to do quite well. As I started to kind of learn more about myself, I would say. I think that was kind of the discovery that I had, and which was quite a big breakthrough for me, because as I said, I was quite hyped always from players around me. I was actually giving quite a lot of interesting poker advice, poker strategy advice to some players who were friends of mine who were doing way better than me. And that was quite frustrating, obviously, if you don't really have the success that you want and you actually give good advice to other players strategically. And that's actually when I kind of started to realize like that there was a big gap between my off-game knowledge and my in-game knowledge due to various factors. And obviously, in general, if you have a lot of financial stress, that's not really helping your poker performance. So that was something that I had to start handling. And then I actually moved back to Brazil again, this time without the poker buddies, but to visit my current wife. Indeed, I arrived there, we got married, I think, a half year later. And that was actually, you know, I was just settling down. We had our own place. I finally felt like I had some control over my expenses. I had some control over my grind routines. I had good recovery because my life wasn't about poker anymore. I wasn't living anymore with poker players. So I would play, I would study, afterwards spend time with the wife, with friends who are all outside of poker. And I think that balance really worked well for me. And I was slowly getting into a better situation. Remember also I started to work a lot with Jared Tendler because, I mean, in general, if you have a lot of financial stress, and I've had a lot of experience, it's good to talk with a mental game coach or with a psychologist, or there were just many factors that I noticed would influence my game, especially, like I said, my gap between off-game and in-game knowledge was just way too big, and I was really curious to figure out how that worked. So I actually lived there. I lived there, I think, in total for 3 to 4 years, mainly playing mid-stakes, playing higher stakes like 1K, 2K plus. I lost quite a lot of money, so I remember I got quite risk averse as well. I had some responsibilities now while I was taking care of my wife while she was studying. So I had expenses and I was on a stake, which all don't really help. And I was risk averse, so I was mainly grinding mid stakes, let's say 400 NL, 600 NL. But managed to grind everything back, managed to pay the staker off. So I was out of markup again. Do remember every time, and this is kind of the ongoing thing, every time when I got off a stake, I would immediately feel like certain financial pressure coming back again. So I think actually through my career I played a lot of stakes, which has a very big compound effect. Like I remember if I would have made better decisions in the beginning, especially the first or second time that I went broke, basically if you then have to grind it back, but with money of someone else, you always have to pay a part of your winnings, and that has a very big compound effect. So I hope for some starting poker players who might be seeing this, I think it's very important that you're responsible with your money. Learn that from me because I wasn't. But in general, those 3 to 4 years in Brazil were a very good time for me. For my career, I was doing quite well. I started to get more into self-development. I remember reading the book The Miracle Morning. Definitely a good book if you are not yet into self-development, but basically it said that you should have a sort of routine in this case in the morning, that would help you set up for good performance during the day. So I started to do these kind of things like meditating, reading other self-help books, reading about performance, and actually started to apply a lot of these factors into poker. But then at some point Brazil came to an end. Me and my Brazilian wife, we were moving back to Europe, spent a little bit of time in Malta and before moving back to Holland. And I think that was 2015, if I'm not mistaken, where I actually had one of my worst years. I made, I think, like 20K that year, purely at the tables. Luckily, back in that time, you still had rakeback. So, you know, in the end, I definitely made more than 20K. But still, when I saw that my table profits were only 20K, that was definitely a wake-up call for me. Like, okay, I have to start changing things up. I wasn't really actively studying and having new inputs anymore. So I think that was definitely a point where I was like, okay, I should probably change a couple of things up. Basically, I was just getting too comfortable in my current situation. And also financially, I was doing well, but I was never really progressing due to expenses, due to the stake, due to not having the success, due to still being risk averse. I would just keep on grinding on mid stakes. I wasn't really looking to move up, so I was mainly using poker for a way to pay for life. And actually, I remember with that bad year, I was close to going broke again. Maybe I had like 10K left or something in my account, which obviously for mid stakes isn't that much. So I actually decided to put that 10K aside and join another stake. Why not? And that was actually, I think, because I still noticed every time when I got on the stake that it really would release some financial pressure for me, which would make me perform way better. So I thought it was worth it, you know, the kind of peace of mind that a stake would give me. I'm not gonna offer staking now to people, you know. This is not some kind of sales stuff. Next, I remember as well that was again a very bad time because I was kind of moving back to Holland, and you know, if you're living abroad, traveling the world, and you're an online poker player, people kind of get quite a romantic view of your situation. And I think a lot of people thought I was way more successful than I actually wasn't. Me, I'm not really the type to start bragging or to pretend to be something that I'm not. But people were projecting like, okay, yeah, the guy lives in Brazil, plays online poker, he must do very well, you know, must be like a millionaire. And that was quite weird, but that kind of external pressure, yeah, I think that kind of external pressure of having to live up to a certain picture that other people might have of me, I remember it was also quite stressful back at the time. But I got on the new stake, and that's actually also, he definitely told me, okay, Rene, I was playing 500 Zoom back at the time, with not the greatest win rate, or maybe I was winning like 1 or 2 BBs back then, which obviously with rake back it was still fine, but he was way more of the, listen, you should play on multiple sides, find better games. So I actually that's actually when I started to become a little bit better in my soft skills. So basically finding better games, multi-siting, learning to handle, because it's quite a hustle, you know, you have to manage lobbies, playing games. Actually started to prepare way better for sessions, started to work a little bit with LLinusLLove, with like some visualization, priming, meditation, which really helped me personally as well. And then actually, I think this was also around the same time that solvers kind of came out. So I also started to have a new place where I could get theoretical input. And that's actually when it all started come together. I remember moving to Holland. And this is kind of where the first steps of Poker Ambition started. Was starting an office with 3 other poker players, of which one of them had the Poker Ambition brand registered as a company. And that was kind of the company which we hired the office. So that was kind of the start of Poker Ambition. And basically I was teaming up with Explode, and Poker Kluka was kind of the main team. And I remember actually back then, especially from Explode's situation, he kind of was in there and he was like, hey, yeah, we're gonna become the best. And I always use poker just as a means, you know, to live. I had to make money to live. But he was like, no, we're here to become the best. And that's like, guess, like that was kind of the final piece of the puzzle to actually set a goal that was higher than just grinding mid-stakes and paying my bills. And I was like, okay, becoming the best. And in the beginning I was like, you know, this guy, let him talk. I will just, you know, do my own things. But, you know, we started to get a bit used to the idea. People were motivated in the team, like, okay guys, you know, let's try to become the best. So I started to get a little bit used to the idea of, okay, so then if we want to become the best, what should we do? So we upped our level of strategy. We were becoming way more efficient with strategy. I think also back in the time, like my theoretical knowledge was getting way better. I was already quite good at, from an exploitative point of view, but I didn't really understand the theory behind it. So I started to become better in poker in general. So yeah, what does someone who is trying to become one of the best in the world does on a daily basis? That was a question that I started to ask myself. And then basically anything that could increase our performance, we started trying. Like I said, I think I already mentioned working with LLinusLLove, working with Jared Tandler, finding other performance coaches, fixing my diet, exercising, basically routine. You know, I was very strict, playing from like 8, 9 in the morning to 5 to 6 in the night, having a structured routine, check. And it was basically just trying to do all these kind of things to, yeah, basically to become one of the best poker players in the world. That was kind of the goal. And a team really helps. I remember actually there was I think LLinusLLove used this quote that he said that high stakes players don't hang out with each other because they're high stakes players. No, they are high stakes players because they hang out with each other. And this is something I think that's very important. You have to find the right group that can lift you to another level. And the belief in our group was definitely there. I mean, the 2 players I just mentioned had or are having their fair share of success in poker. And it kind of came all together. I kind of visualized where this was going and I just started to execute. And then I remember over those next years I was playing mainly 2K to 10K, played against some of the best in the world, the LLinusLLoves, the OTB Barons. Maybe not always the smartest decision. I mean, looking in hindsight at my peak, how good was I? Don't think I was the best in the world. And obviously this kind of also depends on your definition of being the best or your definition of success. How do you measure that? For example, who would you battle, who wouldn't you battle, or was it just purely how much money you won at the tables? For example, you might have a very good and tough player to play against, but his game selection is quite shit. He keeps playing against Linus and OTB. Yeah, then he's not gonna make a lot of money, even though he's quite a good poker player, but he's not a great poker professional. Then I think at my peak there was maybe like 5 guys who I wouldn't really want to be playing 3-4-handed. Obviously this is in the time zone that I was playing, for example, because I was quite strict in my hourly. Could be that there were guys playing in a night that I've never ever played against, because they were also quite strict in their timeline. So I can only basically speak for the players who were online when I was online. You know, the Linuses, the OTBs, the big blind bats. Those were guys that I was trying to avoid. But basically for the rest, I think, play most of the people. So yeah, I guess I saw myself at my peak as number 4 or 5 in that regard. And then basically when you've spent all your career first just trying to get out of makeup, and then when you're finally out of makeup, try to pay your bills, and then when you at some point had to believe or had someone to tell you, hey, you could actually become the best, to then try to make that happen. Then when I finally arrived there, or at least, you know, I had the success that I wanted, I was kind of like, okay, now what is the next challenge? And that's kind of when poker ambition more towards the public started. I think at our max we had like 18 students coming over live. We had rented an extra office and turned it into like a little classroom where we started to teach poker. I think the average stake that was there was probably, I don't know, they were playing, I think, between 50 to 200 NL. We still have a bunch of students. They're mainly playing, I think now, a lot of them reached like 1K, which I'm very proud of, and they did a great job. So shout out to the Poker Ambition students. And basically that's what I've been spending the last 2 years on, really trying to see how do you turn a group of poker players into successful poker players, or at least more successful poker players, because some were already successful. And I'm kind of a guy who doesn't really like to combine things. I kind of go all into something when I choose something. So I basically put my own poker career on hold for a little bit and focused only on that. And basically you could say I went into the lab for like 2 years trying to understand how poker worked in a better way, and then trying to understand how to teach them, and then trying to understand why certain players succeed and why certain players don't. And then for the last 6 months, I kind of started to gather all the knowledge and reflect on what we have learned over my own poker career, coaching the students, and obviously everything that goes around. Interesting for me to learn all that stuff as well. And in general, one of my values is that I want to have growth. So I'm always looking for that next thing that will give me the biggest opportunity for growth. And the last 6 months, I've been mainly focusing on turning all my knowledge that I have into what I would call like basically the ultimate poker course / community that will be available for you guys to join very soon. And we have some other projects coming up as well in 2021. I'm very excited about that. We're working hard on behind the scenes. And as for my own poker career, I do actually plan on playing a little bit more poker in the future. All that studying, coaching, and working together with the team and seeing their success has got me quite excited about playing again. I see a new opportunity for growth down that path. And I'm actually planning on taking you guys along for the ride in my comeback, you could say. The YouTube videos that we just released were an example of that. I think actually that was one of the first sessions I played in quite a long time. So if you like that, that was probably my D game, I would say. But not only on YouTube and Instagram, I also plan to do Twitch. So make sure to follow me there. I'll mainly be playing some 500 Zoom in the beginning, as I think it's a great pool to warm up my game, as it has a good variety of players to play against. The pool is always different. And I think that is about it for my poker story. If you guys have any further questions, you can go over to our Instagram, where we will be doing a live Q&A. If you cannot make it to the live Q&A, you can also post questions down here below. Make sure to turn notifications on, as we will be releasing more content here on YouTube. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. If you didn't like it, then my respect that you made it all the way to the end of this video, and now it's time for you to give it a thumbs down. Also, make sure to sign up for our newsletter, as we are releasing special content in there that we don't release on our social medias. And then you'll also be the first to know when we're gonna be dropping our big bomb of poker knowledge on the poker world. All right, I'll be seeing you guys in future videos, and thank you all for watching. Try out and start to do some twitching, so you can follow us there. Look, I'm starting, cara.
Do some twitching. It's not a verb. Do some twitch. Do some twitching. You're gonna be twitching. So that's why
Twitching, man. I'm gonna do Twitch again, like we Twitch next summer. Oh, Twitch again.
I'm sorry, but I'm pretty much sure it's do some twitch. Like do some twitching in there.
Twitch, twitching. Who cares? I just want to see you play, man.